Hello, Skills and Frills kiddos. I hope you're having a great week. Today's project is super fun. We're making air dry clay. And this is a really simple recipe that you can make. You probably have all the ingredients already in your house. You're going to need baking soda. We've used that before in class, so hopefully you still have that. If you don't, this is what it looks like. It's baking soda. We have a really big bag because we make a lot of things with baking soda in our class. But this is baking soda. You'll also need cornstarch. Remember, we've used cornstarch a couple of times as well. And this is what that looks like, cornstarch. You can buy this, this and baking soda at any store. They should be super easy to find. The third ingredient you'll need is simply water. So I want you to gather up your ingredients, baking soda, cornstarch, and water, and we'll get started with our recipe. We're at our stove top. We have a pan, a pot actually, that we have on our stove top. We're gonna go ahead and mix in this. It's not on the heat. We're not gonna turn it on until we have all of our ingredients incorporated, but there's no need to get a separate bowl out and make a mess with that. I'm gonna use baking soda here. We need 1 cup. If you're buying your baking soda in the store, it comes, I believe, in 12-ounce containers, which is, I believe, 1.5 cups. A cup is 8 ounces. Correct? Alexa, how many ounces are in a cup?
1 cup is 8 fluid ounces.
There we go, 8 ounces. So what you buy in the store should be about 1.5 cups if you get a 12 ounce. So if you're gonna make extra clay, you might need more than 1 box. But we're gonna add 1 cup. This is a 1/2 cup measure, so I'm adding 2 in there. That gives me my 1 cup. We're also going to add a 1/2 cup of cornstarch. So we've worked with this before. I find it easier to spoon it out than to try to pour it out. It's just very, very fine. It's very powdery, and if you try to pour it, it just doesn't work well. So now that we have a 1/2 cup of that, we're gonna add it to our baking soda. And our last ingredient is water. We need 3/4 cups water, okay? That is, I have a 1/2 cup of here, which is 2/4, and I have an extra 1/4 cup, so I'm gonna need 1 of each of those. Before I add my water, I'm gonna stir together my cornstarch and my baking soda really quickly. So let me add my 3/4 cups of water. That's a 1/2 cup, which is 2/4. And we'll add 1 more quarter. So that gives us 3/4. Now I'm gonna mix this together until it's not dry anymore. This is gonna be a little tricky. Cornstarch and baking soda can feel a little thick. If you made our sidewalk chalk paint, you know that the cornstarch might take a few seconds to dissolve fully. But if you can see that, Alice, can you get inside the pan there? That we're just mixing it until it's all one nice consistency. And that looks pretty good. So now we're gonna turn our pan on medium high. So on my stove, we go from a 2 to a 10. So I'm gonna put it around a 6. And we're gonna bring this to a simmer and until it becomes a thick ball of dough. And we can stir that. It's probably gonna take a few minutes, so we wanna definitely watch it, but we don't have to constantly stir it. While this is heating, I'm getting my countertop ready. I have a Silpat. This is a silicone baking sheet. I like to use that. If you don't have that, it's fine. Just clean off your counter. You can also try a piece of parchment paper if you'd like, if you're trying not to get your counter too dirty, but I'm using my Silpat. I'm just gonna put some cornstarch out on my Silpat so that when we turn our ball out, it won't stick, and that way it will stick to the cornstarch instead, and we can start kneading our clay in the cornstarch. So we've been cooking our clay mixture for about 4-ish minutes now. You can see it's starting to simmer and it's getting thicker. We're gonna continue to stir while this continues to cook and keep simmering until this forms a ball. Okay, so now you can see it. It's very thick. And I can form it kind of into a ball in the center. It's pulling away. It's definitely very thick. We're gonna turn this out while it's warm onto our cornstarch little spot here on our silk pad. And we have cornstarch on the bottom. I'm gonna kind of flatten this out with my spatula. And I'm gonna put a little, I'm gonna sprinkle some cornstarch on the top so that it's not super sticky on the top. You see how my spatula doesn't stick as much. And I'm gonna flatten this out and I'm gonna let this stay for about 2 or 3 minutes so that it cools, and then we can knead it. It's too hot for us to knead at the moment. So if we flatten it out, it'll cool a little quicker, and then we'll come back in 2 or 3 minutes and we'll start kneading it all together. So we've let this cool for a few minutes and now we're going to just knead it. Kneading is when we push the dough back into itself. It makes the dough more elastic. It also helps incorporate some air, so that way the dough will be nice and smooth when we use it. I don't need a whole bunch of cornstarch here, but I do need probably an additional 1/4 cup, I'm gonna guess, is what we'll end up incorporating total into this dough. So we're just gonna continue to knead it till it's nice and smooth and cooled down. Now this dough is air dry clay, so we don't have to bake it. In class, we've used what's called polymer clay. Sometimes that's the brand name Sculpey. We've used that several times, and that is a clay that you bake, and that clay does not become hard until it is baked. Air dry clay is not like that. Air dry clay becomes hard as you leave it out in the air to dry, so you don't have to bake it. This is a really fun clay to do all sorts of things with, and like I said, after we're done making it, I'll show you a few ways you can use it at home. You could make some really cute keychains. Mother's Day is coming up, Father's Day is coming up, so you could make your mom and dad a really cute keychain if you wanted to. So our dough is very, very smooth at this point. It's still got a little tiny bit of stick. So I'm gonna add a tiny bit more cornstarch. Again, I'm not really measuring this out. I'm simply sprinkling it on and then incorporating it into my big ball. And I think this will be the last bit of cornstarch we need. The dough is still warm at this point. It hasn't cooled completely, but it's definitely not so hot that you couldn't knead it. And this dough is really, really soft and very, very smooth at this point. If you still feel like your dough has a little bit of stick to it when you're kneading it, just keep sprinkling on cornstarch and adding it until it's not sticky. You don't want it to be super hard though. So you don't want it to crumble. So if you add too much cornstarch, it can get crumbly, and we want to avoid that. This dough looks pretty perfect to me. It's nice and smooth, it's soft, and it has very little stick to it. So we're gonna just let this stay and cool, and then we'll begin to work with it. So it's been a couple days since we made our clay, and it's still wonderfully soft. The way we stored it overnight, actually 2 nights since we've made our clay, was I put it in a Tupperware dish and I put a damp cloth over it. We just put this under water and then squeeze out all the excess water, and we put it over our clay, and we stored it just at room temperature, and it's been totally fine. Let's give you a few examples of things you can do with your air dry clay. The first thing we're gonna do is make a couple pendants or keychains. This would be a great project for something you could give to your mom or your grandma for Mother's Day. We're gonna just take a piece of our clay, and I have a piece of PVC pipe. We've used this in class before when we work with clay. Never use the same rolling pin for clay and for food. So this is just a little piece of PVC pipe. You probably have one lying around in your garage somewhere, I bet. You could use a little wooden dowel or something like that as well. I'm just gonna roll out my dough. And you can see it's still pretty thick there, right? One of the things that you can do when you're making these pendants or keychains is to add a texture. I found this shelf liner in my craft room, and I'm gonna see what it looks like when I apply it as a texture to my clay. That way my pieces have more interest. So I'm gonna lay it down, and I'm just gonna roll it out the rest of the way with the material over it. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, you see how cool that looks? You could do this with lace, or if you had something lying around, maybe some buttons or something like that. That would be really neat. Try some burlap, some denim, things like that might be a really interesting way to add some texture to your piece. I also have little tiny cookie cutters. We don't want our little pendants to be huge, so I want to use something a bit smaller. If you don't have cookie cutters, you could print out a shape that you like, and then put it down on you're gonna cut it out, put it on your piece of clay, and then trace around it with the tip of a pen, and that will help cut out too if you don't have little cookie cutters. I think today I am gonna go with, oh, I like this little bitty flower. I'm gonna make a couple of those because I think that will be pretty. We'll do 2 flowers. Let's see. And what else do I have in here? I thought I had a little heart somewhere. I don't see it at the moment. So let's do our bigger heart. You see I have a heart that's a bit big. We'll do that. That's perfect. And then, oh, here's my little heart. Let me see. So I'll do a couple of little hearts as well. That's perfect. So I'm gonna put these to the side, and then I'm gonna show you how we add a little hole, because obviously if we're gonna make these keychains or pendants, we're going to add a little hole to them. You can do this in a couple of different ways. You get a couple of tools. So what you're going to use is a pen or a pencil, and you're just gonna go all the way down and then go around. So I don't know if you guys can see that. You see, I added the hole. See if I can pick this up and show you guys while I do it. Okay, so this is the back side of the one I just did. I'm just making that hole a little bigger. Let me show you on our big heart here. So I'm just gonna go where I want my hole. I don't wanna put it too close to the edge because it could easily tear. I'm actually thinking I'm gonna put it here, and I'm just going around to make the hole a little bigger. See that? We'll try it again. We'll do our flower. So again, just going straight down and then going around. And I'm gonna check the backs. I just wanna open that up a little bit. So I'm gonna do the same thing on this side. Let me check the back of this one. That looks good. Let's try the rest of these. Oh. And I'm just gonna leave these to dry. They take about a full day to completely dry. You'll start to see them curl up a little bit because the outside is dry, but the inside is not. So just let them sit here overnight and we'll work on them again tomorrow. The next thing we're gonna make with our air dry clay is a little trinket bowl. You could use this for just coins in your room or jewelry or paper clips, things like that on a desk. And these are really cute to make. You can make them in pretty much any pattern you can think of. If you want yours to be a cactus or a kitty cat, or maybe you just want it to be a pretty blue round bowl, that's fine too. So think about how you want to make yours, what you'd like yours to look like, and we'll show you how to do that. This next project that we're gonna try with our air dry clay is a little trinket bowl, or you could put your jewelry in it. You could put paper clips in it. It's really just a cute little bowl that's decorative and will hold just a few things, maybe your change, things like that. First thing you're gonna do is start out with your clay, and this first one is going to be a circle. So I'm gonna roll it out, and I'm gonna do my best to get it a circle shape. I do have a large circle cookie cutter that I'm going to use, but if you don't have a large circle cookie cutter, you could definitely put a small lid from a jar, or you could do the lid of your bowl that you like. You could definitely use that to cut out your circle. Okay, let's see if mine is perfect. Mine is perfect. So before I cut it out, I'm gonna add some impressions on this. I have a few different buttons. This one is a butterfly, and I'm gonna push them into my clay. See if you guys can see that. You see, it made a butterfly impression. I have little circles, and I wanna do this before I cut it out so that I can make sure that the circle doesn't spread too much. So I have a little star, and I just have this little tool that I'm using. It just happens to have a little point on the end so that I can get my pieces out. But you see how it makes these different impressions? So I'm just gonna put a few more impressions in because I think they look cool. And then we will cut out our circle. Now, if you wanted to do something, I've seen these jewelries, bowls that have like a ring holder, so they've made maybe a cactus in the middle or something like that. You could definitely use your clay to make that, and then you could adhere it to the middle of your bowl. You could use glue, or you could dry it all together, but your bowl will, if you don't mold your bowl the way we show you, it will droop a little bit, but you can definitely try to make it work. Okay, so now I have my cookie cutter. I'm going to cut out my circle. Okay, and I'll show you guys. Here's my circle with all my cool indentions. Now, I think I want that to be the inside of my bowl. So when I mold my bowl, I need something to mold it on. I have a big jar, and I also have this little jar. I'm gonna see which might work better. If I put it over the big jar, you see I have very little lip. Can you tell that? It's gonna come over, and it will be a very shallow bowl. If I put it over this smaller one, it's going to be a deeper bowl. And I think that's what I like. So I'm just gonna go around and have it stay on this smaller one. I think that'll be good. I'm gonna leave that to dry, and it again will need to dry overnight. If you were adding a middle part, you could unmold it in about 10 minutes after it's dried a little bit, and you could add the other part, but I do think it will slump more. So I think you might be better off gluing your middle part in if you did something like that. So I wanted to show you all, it's the next morning, and here are our pendants. They're pretty much dry, but if I turn it over, can you see how that lighter spot in the middle, that's not quite dry. So we're gonna turn all of these pieces over so that they can finish drying fully. And then I wanna show you my little pot. It's been drying on this little jar overnight. And if I turn it over, you see how it's still a little wet in the very middle. You can tell by the different color, but its form is great. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn that over and leave everything to dry for a few more hours until it's all completely white, just like that. So it's been another day and our clay has all dried. Let me show it to you. It's super cute. Our pieces are now perfectly dry. You can see this is our bowl that we made. These are all our cutouts. You can even see that there's texture on some of these that we use. We're gonna take these outside and we're gonna give them a coat of spray paint. If you don't have spray paint, that's totally fine. You can use regular craft paint. I like the gloss that the spray paint offers, so we're gonna give them a coat of spray paint. So for that, you'll need spray paint. I'm bringing out 4 colors. I got a piece of newspaper and I'm gonna have my pieces. We'll take those outside and spray them really quick. I've brought my pieces outside. I put them in a sunny spot and I've used rocks just from my yard to weigh down my paper. You definitely don't wanna do this on a sunny day, on a windy day. And you'll want to ask your mom or dad for help with the spray paint because it can be messy. I'm gonna start with this color, this like robin's egg blue. I'm gonna do my cloud and my heart that. I'm gonna shake up my spray paint and just give a light coat to that. That's plenty. I think this middle top section, we're gonna make pink. We'll keep going and do our other colors. I've sprayed all of my pieces now. When these dry, we'll turn them over and we'll give them a coat on the back. All of my pieces have now been painted front and back. I'm a little funky on my bowl and did green on one side and purple in the middle. I actually ended up doing 2 coats on the front just because I liked the way it looked. I think it looked a lot better. You can see these are my textured pieces. Here's my plain little cloud. Isn't he cute? Have some hearts. I can now use craft paints to decorate these in any way I choose. I can use cute little strings to put these on and use these as gift tags or make little keychains out of them. Whatever your heart desires. I hope you guys had lots of fun making your air dry clay. I'd love to see what cute little projects you come up with to make out of your clay. You can really do anything. You can make anything you can think of. So I want you to get cooking. I want you to get your clay done and I want to see what you made. Remember to put it on our Facebook or Instagram pages. We're at Skills, the letter N, Frills, Skills and Frills on both Instagram and Facebook. So make sure to post what you've made. We can't wait to see it. We'll see you guys next week. We'll have one last video before we wrap up for our season. I hope you guys have enjoyed them and look for next week's video. It'll be something fun. Have a great week, guys.